Okay, this is one of Hobart's AM12 machines, and this particular one happens to be a corner operation, but the control box on all AM12s, whether they're straights or corners, are the same. And you can tell the difference between a 12, an AM12, and an AM14 fairly easily, because the AM14 has the digital readout on the bottom on the control box, and as you can see, this one doesn't. This one has analog gauges that sit up on top of the machine. So it makes it easier for you to identify the machine where you're going in to look at it, so that you'll have a good understanding of the hookup. Now, again, we're talking about hooking up the Digiset and the MicroPro in probe and probeless operations, so I'm just going to open up this control box so that you can have a look at it. Now, the AM12 does have an automatic fill feature, so we can take advantage of hooking this up to operate the way that an AM14 works, except the hookup on this is a little different. When this machine was made, they didn't make provisions for rinse power supply 1 and rinse power supply 2. So the rinse power is supplied to the rinse solenoid through V1, which is a pink wire, and V2, which is also a pink wire. So if I was going to hook this unit up to work on probeless operation, what I would do is I'd use these connectors like I've been using throughout these installations, where I could disconnect V1 and V2 and then reconnect them to the top of these and bring my signal in for my rinse signal for the AM12 and then reconnect this to V1 and V2. Our dispensing equipment is all fused with low amperage fuses, so if there's any kind of problem, it's not going to affect the control box. It will only blow the fuse in the control. And then for my constant power, I can go to either line side of these two contactors, or I can go to the incoming power right over here. This machine is also 208 three-phase. Now, if I was going to hook up a probe connection, then it's a little bit different. Then what I would do is I could still use this as my incoming power for my Digiset, because if I want to have my control lit all the time, I need constant power. I would still use V1 and V2 for my rinse connection, but when I want to hook up my detergent connection so that I have power to my probe when the machine is in cycle, I could get my connection right here. This is my chemical connection, or my detergent power supply, and that will supply power to my detergent signal in on the Digiset and on the MicroPro. Now, every time the AM12 runs, when you open the door and close it, what happens is this magnetic contactor, this little two-pole contactor right here, pulls in on the front of the door, and that stays in for the 60 seconds of the cycle. Now, this is being controlled by a relay that's on the circuit board, and sometimes when you get on older AM12s, that relay breaks down and this isn't working. So should that happen, just go to our good old backup, which is the secondary of the motor contactor, and just go to the secondary of the motor contactor, and you can get your power there for your detergent signal in. One more thing I'll tell you about the AM12. When this machine operates, what you want to do a fill cycle properly, because mostly you don't want to run this motor dry. So what you should do when you start this machine is you lift the door and open the door with these switches both in the off position. The cycle light will come on for 45 seconds, and after the cycle light goes out, you can then turn on the power switch. The machine will not start, and then press the fill switch once, and the machine will go through its automatic fill cycle. So if you're working it in probeless mode, what will happen is it will recharge just like the AM14 did, and after 30 seconds it will put in your initial charge, and then every time the machine runs through a cycle, it will do the recharge at the beginning of the rinse.